It all started with blood. Screaming metal. Shattered glass. 1 second I was changing the radio station, the next, my world flipped, literally. The truck slammed into my driver's side at full speed. The sound was unreal, like the sky itself cracked open. Then black. I woke up 2 days later. Tubes in my arms. My ribs felt like fire, my legs numb. The sterile white walls of the hospital room were the first things I saw. Then her. Alyssa. My wife. My best friend. The woman I believed would never leave my side. She was holding my hand, her eyes red from crying. "You're okay," she whispered, and I believed her. For the first few weeks I held onto that image. Her soft smile, her fingers running through my hair, her head on my shoulder as I lay helpless in that hospital bed. I thought that was love. I thought pain had brought us closer. But it was a lie. While I was learning to walk again, she was learning how to forget me. I didn't see it at first. I was too focused on surviving. Surgeries, rehab, painkillers that made me forget my own name. I clung to Alyssa like a lifeline, needing her more than ever before. And she was there at first. But then the visits got shorter. Her excuses got longer. "Work's been crazy. I've got errands. I'll come tomorrow, I promise." Tomorrow never came. Instead, I noticed things. Her perfume changed. Her texts became colder, shorter. She stopped saying, "I love you," before hanging up. My gut told me something was wrong, but I didn't want to believe it. I thought it was just the trauma playing tricks on me. Until the night I called her and a man answered her phone. That was the moment everything shifted. He hung up before I could even speak. I stared at the screen like it had betrayed me. My hands shook. My heart slammed against my chest like it wanted to break free. When she showed up the next morning, smiling like nothing happened, I said nothing. Just watched her, studied her. The way she avoided my eyes, the way she kept checking her phone. Something inside me snapped. But I had to be sure. I needed proof. I couldn't confront her with just a suspicion. I had already lost so much. I couldn't bear losing my mind too. So I waited. I played the part. I smiled. I kissed her hand. I told her I missed her. And all the while I planned. And what I found broke me in ways the accident never could. I started with the basics, her phone. Alyssa had always been cautious, keeping it close like it held state secrets. But one afternoon, during her brief visit, she left it charging on the counter while she stepped out to take a call in the hallway. Maybe she got careless. Maybe she didn't think a man barely walking again could do much. But pain makes you creative. I dragged myself from the couch, every step screaming, and got to it before she came back. Her passcode hadn't changed, my birthday. That alone stung. She still used something so personal, so intimate, while doing God knows what behind my back. The messages told me everything. Long threads with someone named Tyler G. Not saved as babe or love or anything incriminating. Just Tyler G. Smart, but not smart enough. I read in silence. My mouth dry, stomach turning with every scroll. Flirty texts. Late night thinking of you messages. Screenshots of reservations. One message, in particular, burned itself into my mind. "He's asleep by 8. I'll leave after." That was me. I should have stopped there. Should have thrown the phone across the room. But something pushed me deeper. A kind of masochistic hunger. I opened the photo album. Hidden folder. There they were. Pictures of them together in our house. On our couch. In my damn truck. The betrayal wasn't just physical. It was spiritual. It was anatomical. She had dissected me and sold the parts to another man while I lay broken and sedated. I didn't say anything when she came back into the room. She kissed my forehead like she hadn't just gutted me from the inside out. I didn't flinch. I played along. She thought she still had me fooled. But that night I couldn't sleep. My heart wouldn't stop racing. The painkillers did nothing. My mind was louder than any drug could silence. I stared at the ceiling, reliving every moment we'd shared in the last 6 years. The night I proposed. The vows we exchanged. The nights we laughed ourselves to sleep. Had she been pretending all along? The next day I called my brother, Nate. Told him everything. He wanted to confront her then and there, but I told him no. I needed more. I needed to look her in the eyes when I told her I knew. I needed to see if she'd lie again. I needed to understand what kind of monster she'd become while I was too broken to see. So I set the trap. I told her I was going in for an MRI that would take a few hours. She smiled, kissed me on the cheek, told me to call when I was done. But I never went to the hospital. Instead, Nate drove me back home. We waited outside, in his car, just down the block. At exactly 6:45 p.m., a silver Lexus pulled into our driveway. Tyler. She came out to meet him in a short black dress I had bought her for our anniversary. The same one she wore the night I told her I loved her more than anything in this world. She looked beautiful, radiant, like a woman in love. But not with me. They kissed. Not a peck. Not a hesitant glance around the street kind of kiss. A kiss with hunger, with comfort, with history. That was the moment my world ended. The hardest part wasn't the kiss. It wasn't the betrayal, or even the way she melted into his arms like she'd done it 100 times before. No, the hardest part was that I still loved her in that moment. Sitting there watching my wife, my supposed partner, my anchor through tragedy, cheat on me in plain sight, I still felt something pulling me toward her. Some pathetic, shattered piece of me still hoped this was all a misunderstanding. That there was an explanation. That maybe it wasn't what it looked like. But it was exactly what it looked like. And worse, they didn't go to a hotel. They went inside our home. My home. I knew every inch of that house. The creak in the third stair, the way the kitchen light flickered if you jiggled the switch. I knew the smell of her perfume on the pillows, the warmth of her body beside me in our bed. I sat in Nate's car as they disappeared inside, and it felt like the world went silent. My chest was hollow, my mind numb. Nate looked at me, waiting for instruction, maybe expecting me to rush the door. But I couldn't move, couldn't even breathe. We waited. For hours. I didn't speak. I just watched the lights flick on in different rooms. Our living room, then the upstairs bedroom. Then everything went dark. At some point, Nate placed a hand on my shoulder. "We can go," he said gently. "You don't need to see more." But I did. I needed to sit in the full weight of it. I needed to feel the suffocation, the humiliation, the annihilation of everything I thought my life was. Because if I didn't feel it now, it would eat me alive later. The next morning, I went back to the hospital. Alyssa was already there, waiting in my room, pretending to care. Her hair was slightly damp. She'd showered, cleaned herself of him before coming to me. I wondered if she thought I could smell her sin, if she noticed the difference in the way I looked at her. I asked her how her night was. She smiled. Quiet. Just stayed home, caught up on laundry. "You?" She lied to my face so easily it almost impressed me. For the next few days, I acted like nothing had changed. I let her bring me food, fluff my pillows, text me good night, like we were still us. All the while, I counted down the hours until my release from the hospital, until I could stand on my own 2 feet, walk into my house, and tear my life down brick by brick. When I finally got discharged, I didn't go home with her. I told her I needed to spend a few days at my brother's to adjust. She didn't protest. She even offered to bring things over. She probably thought I was just overwhelmed, still healing, still dependent. She had no idea I was building a storm behind my silence. That week, I changed all my passwords, opened a separate bank account, pulled copies of every shared document, mortgage papers, tax returns, insurance. I went to a lawyer, told him everything, showed him the photos, the texts, the timeline. He didn't say much, just looked at me and nodded, like he'd seen this story 100 times before. But it wasn't just a story. It was my life, my wife, my betrayal. The confrontation wasn't planned for a dramatic moment. I didn't storm into the house screaming. I didn't throw things or cry. No, when it came, it was cold, precise, like a surgeon with a scalpel, not for revenge, but for removal. I showed up on a quiet Sunday morning, just after she got back from her yoga class, wearing leggings that were too clean and a glow that didn't come from exercise. She was surprised to see me at the door. "I thought you were still at Nate's," she said, smiling, leaning in for a kiss I didn't give. "I needed to see my house," I said calmly. "See what's left of it." Her smile faltered just a little. Not enough for most to notice. But I did. I walked past her into the kitchen, sat down, told her to join me. "Alyssa," I began, my voice steady, almost eerily calm. "I know about Tyler." Her reaction wasn't immediate. For half a second, she blinked. Then she tried to laugh. "Tyler? Who?" "Baby, what are you talking about?" I slid my phone across the table, opened to a folder labeled Truth. Photos, screenshots, timestamps, the kiss in the driveway, the messages, the photo of her in my bed with him. I watched the color drain from her face like a faucet had been turned. She didn't touch the phone, didn't look at me, just stared at the table like it might swallow her whole. It's not what it looks like," she started, but the words sounded ridiculous even to her. "I was in the hospital," I said, my voice low, trembling with fury I barely contained. "I couldn't walk. I couldn't even piss without help. And you were here. With him. In our bed. In the house we built together. While I was broken, you were busy replacing me." Tears filled her eyes. "It wasn't like that." "Then tell me how it was, Alyssa. Enlighten me." She opened her mouth, but no words came. Because what could she say? That she was lonely? That the man who'd nearly died just wasn't enough? That she thought I might not recover and love can't wait for the inconvenient timing of fate? Instead, she reached for my hand. And that was the final insult. I pulled away. "Don't. You lost the right to touch me." "I didn't mean for it to happen," she whispered. "I didn't plan it. But you chose it. Every time you texted him. Every time you lied. Every time you left me in that hospital to go screw him. You chose this." Then she broke. Real tears. Real sobs. But I felt nothing. Not hate. Not love. Just silence inside me. A void she had carved out with every betrayal, every fake smile, every night she spent in another man's arms while I thought we were still something worth saving. "I want to fix this," she said. "We can fix it, can't we?" I looked at her. This woman I had once thought was my future. My home. My forever. And I realized she was none of those things anymore. "No," I said. "We can't." I stood. My legs still ached. My body still remembered the trauma. But my spine was straight. My mind was clear. For the first time in months, I felt alive. "You broke us, Alyssa. You don't get to tape it back together and pretend it wasn't shattered." I walked out the door. Left her there. Crying in the ruins of what she destroyed. And I didn't look back. The days that followed were the hardest. Not because I missed her that was already dying the night I saw her with him. No, what hurt was the space she left behind. The silence in our home that used to be filled with her laughter, the faint perfume on the pillow that hadn't yet faded, the memories that clung to the walls like ghosts. Everywhere I looked, I saw echoes of us. A picture frame on the mantel, dusty but still standing. A coffee mug she always used, now sitting alone in the sink. Her shampoo in the shower. The drawer that still held her old socks and t-shirts. I didn't touch anything at first. Couldn't. It felt like admitting she was really gone. Like ripping the scab off a wound that hadn't stopped bleeding. I started sleeping on the couch. The bed was too big, too empty, too loud with memory. At night, I would stare at the ceiling, listening to the silence, my mind replaying everything. Her voice. His name. That kiss. My accident. The moment I woke up thinking she was my salvation when in fact she was already slipping away. I began to wonder when it started. Was it before the crash? Did she already have one foot out the door, just waiting for an excuse? Or did my pain simply make her realize she couldn't stomach the work love required? I replayed every moment of our last year together, searching for signs I'd missed. And I found them. Little things. Her phone always on silent. The sudden interest in solo time. The fake fights she'd start just to storm out for a few hours. All of it had been there. But I didn't want to see it. Love makes you blind, but trust makes you stupid. I gave her every reason not to doubt me. Every part of me unconditionally. And she cashed it all in for cheap thrills and a man who wasn't broken. The divorce process started quickly. I didn't want to drag it out. My lawyer was efficient and I gave him full control. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to ruin her. I just wanted out. Freedom. A clean cut. She tried calling, messaging, begging to talk. She sent long emails full of guilt and memories, pulling at every shared laugh, every tear we ever shed together. She said things like, "You're still my best friend, and please don't throw away everything we had." But she had thrown it away first, not with a single act, but piece by piece, lie by lie, night by night in another man's arms. I didn't answer her once. Silence became my only language. And it was louder than any scream I could have given her. But healing wasn't immediate. It was messy. Some mornings I woke up thinking maybe I'd imagined it all, hoping it was just a nightmare. Other days I felt strong. Resolved. Like I was reclaiming myself. I started going to therapy. It wasn't something I ever thought I'd do, but the trauma of the accident combined with the betrayal was too much to bear alone. And for the first time in years I started really talking about everything. My fears. My guilt. My anger. My shame. I poured it all out and it didn't fix me, but it helped me breathe again. One afternoon, after a particularly heavy session, I walked past a park Alyssa and I used to visit. For a second, I almost turned away, not ready to drown in nostalgia. But something pulled me in. I sat on a bench under the old oak tree we once carved our initials into, and I realized something. I didn't feel hate anymore. Not for her. Not even for Tyler. What I felt was deeper. It was loss, yes, but also clarity. She didn't cheat because I failed. She cheated because she was weak. Because when life got hard, she ran toward comfort instead of standing by her vows. Her betrayal wasn't a reflection of my worth. It was a reflection of hers. That realization didn't erase the pain, but it gave me something I hadn't had in a long time. Peace. As the divorce paperwork moved forward, my life settled into a strange, quiet rhythm. I began to rediscover myself. Not the version that was married, not the man defined by his accident or abandonment, but the man I used to be before all of it. There were moments of stillness that felt sacred. Drinking coffee on my porch without anyone rushing me. Sitting with a book and actually absorbing the words. I even started driving again, slowly, cautiously, but it was freedom all the same. The first time I turned the key in my own truck and felt the engine rumble beneath me, I almost cried. It was like reclaiming a part of my soul that had been locked away since the crash. There were setbacks, too. Emotional ones. Grief doesn't announce itself politely. It kicks down the door when you least expect it. A commercial would come on TV and remind me of a joke Alyssa used to make. A song in the grocery store would start playing, and suddenly I'd be standing frozen in the cereal aisle, blinking back tears because it was the one she sang in the shower. Little things hurt more than the big ones. The big betrayals are loud and sharp, but it's the quiet reminders that cut the deepest. One night, I ran into someone from our old circle of friends. Marcus. We hadn't spoken since the accident. He was visibly uncomfortable, unsure of how much I knew. Eventually, after some small talk, he asked how I was holding up. I shrugged, told him I was surviving. He nodded, then hesitated. Man, I didn't know if I should say anything, he said. But Alyssa, she brought that guy around, even before the accident. Said he was just a friend from work, but I should have known better. I'm sorry. There it was. Confirmation. She hadn't just strayed when I was weak. She'd already started the process while I was still standing. The truth hit harder than I expected, not because it changed anything, but because it stripped away the last illusion. She wasn't just a woman who made a mistake under stress. She was a woman who had been building her escape long before I crashed into that intersection. Still, I thanked Marcus, not because I wanted pity or validation, but because the truth, even when painful, felt like a kind of liberation. After that, I stopped avoiding certain places. I went back to the diner where we used to have breakfast. Sat in our usual booth. The waitress, an older woman named Ruth, recognized me and brought over my usual without asking. Haven't seen you in a while, she said gently. I nodded, told her I'd been recovering. She didn't ask questions, just smiled, patted my hand, and left the coffee pot on the table like she used to. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel haunted by the memory. I just felt present. A few weeks later, the divorce was finalized. My lawyer sent me the last documents with a note that simply read, "You're free." I stared at those words for a long time. Free. Felt strange. Like losing a limb and then being told you're healed. Part of you wants to celebrate, but another part wonders what you're supposed to do with all the emptiness. I didn't throw a party. Didn't post anything on social media. I just sat with it, let it settle. And then, quietly, I began to move forward. Moving forward didn't mean forgetting. It didn't mean the pain vanished or that the betrayal stopped echoing through certain moments of my day. What it meant, really, was learning to live alongside it like a limp that never quite goes away after a bad fall. Some mornings, the weight of what happened still pressed down on my chest before I even opened my eyes. But I stopped fighting it. I let it sit with me, like an old wound reminding me of the war I survived. I gave it a name, gave it room, and then I got up anyway. I started rebuilding not just my life, but my identity. I went back to work, slowly at first, easing into half-days, then full ones. My coworkers were kind, respectful but distant, unsure of what to say. I didn't mind. I wasn't there for sympathy. I was there to feel useful again, to remember that I could contribute something outside of my pain. There was satisfaction in small victories, completing a project, solving a problem, earning a quiet nod of respect from my boss. For the first time in a long while, I felt competent, in control, whole. One weekend, Nate convinced me to join him on a short trip upstate, just 2 brothers, a cabin, and no distractions. I was hesitant. The idea of being unplugged, left alone with my thoughts, felt both healing and terrifying. But I went. And I'm glad I did. The silence of the woods, the smell of pine and firewood, the sound of wind moving through the trees, it did something to me. Out there, I wasn't the guy who got cheated on. I wasn't the man in recovery. I was just a human being, breathing, present, alive. One night, Nate and I sat under the stars, sipping cheap whiskey, and he asked me, "Do you think you'll ever trust someone again?" I didn't answer right away. Trust. The word felt fragile, almost foreign. I thought of Alyssa's lies. The way she'd looked me in the eye and promised forever, all while carrying someone else's secrets in her back pocket. But then I realized something: her betrayal didn't erase my ability to trust. It wounded it, yes, scarred it beyond recognition. But wounds heal. Scar tissue is stronger than the skin that came before. Maybe not like before, I finally said. But yeah. One day, when I got back from the trip, I started decluttering the house. Not just her things, those had been boxed up and sent away long ago, but everything that felt like it belonged to the old version of me. The man who tolerated quiet resentment, who mistook routine for love, who ignored his own intuition for the sake of keeping peace. I threw out furniture, donated clothes, repainted the walls. It was symbolic, maybe even cliché, but it mattered. Each stroke of the brush, each cleared corner, felt like reclaiming territory. One afternoon, while cleaning out the hall closet, I found a shoebox I'd forgotten about. Inside were old photographs, Polaroids from our early days. Smiling faces. Vacations. Notes we'd left each other. It felt like looking at strangers. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just sat there, flipping through them slowly, letting the memories rise and fall without resistance. And then I closed the box, walked it to the backyard, and burned it. Not out of bitterness, but as a farewell. To the version of me that loved blindly. To the love that died long before I admitted it. Months passed. Seasons shifted. I watched the leaves turn gold and fall, then the first snow blanket my street in silence. Life moved forward, and so did I, inch by inch. There was no single moment when I knew I was healing, no triumphant victory over the past. It was subtle. The kind of change you only notice in hindsight. Like realizing one day that you no longer check your phone expecting their name to appear. That the smell of their perfume doesn't turn your stomach anymore. That you can say their name out loud without flinching. That's how healing happens, slowly, mercilessly, and eventually. I reconnected with people I'd pushed away during the worst of it. Friends who'd reached out during my recovery, during the divorce, and whom I'd kept at arm's length because I couldn't bear the shame. They welcomed me back with open arms, no questions asked. We had dinners, bonfires, poker nights. I laughed again, not the forced kind you use to cover up pain, but the real kind, the kind that catches you off guard and reminds you that you're still human. One night, I found myself talking to someone new. Her name was Claire. She worked at the same office building, a graphic designer with a dry sense of humor and eyes that saw more than they let on. We started with casual coffee runs, quick chats in the elevator, harmless flirting. I didn't think much of it at first, didn't allow myself to. I was cautious. Guarded. But Claire wasn't pushy. She didn't ask for details I wasn't ready to give. She didn't try to fix me or save me. She just listened. She showed up. She was kind. The first time I told her what had happened, the accident, the betrayal, the divorce, I expected her to pull away. To see me as damaged goods. But she didn't. She sat with it. With me. And in that stillness, I realized how starved I'd been for simple, non-judgmental presence. Still, I didn't rush anything. I wasn't looking to fill a void, and she wasn't a bandage. What we were building was something new, born not out of desperation but out of quiet understanding. We went slowly. Walks in the park. Conversations that lasted hours. No pretense. No pressure. Just two people learning each other's scars and still choosing to stay. One evening, we sat on the same park bench under that old oak tree, the one where I had once carved initials that no longer meant anything. I told her about that day, about how I used to come here just to hurt, to bleed out the memories. She reached over, took my hand, and said, maybe now it's time to make new ones. Her words weren't grand or poetic, but they were exactly what I needed. And for the first time, I believed it. I wasn't the same man I had been before the accident, before the lies, before the unraveling of everything I thought I knew. I was different now. Wiser, maybe? More cautious. But also stronger. Not because I endured pain, but because I allowed it to change me. Because I didn't let it define me forever. The past still lived inside me. But it no longer owned me. I once thought betrayal would be the end of me. That it would hollow me out so completely I'd never be able to feel love or trust again. And for a time, that belief felt true. When Alyssa broke what we had, not just our vows, but the foundation of my entire reality, it felt like I was drowning in something darker than grief. Grief has a finality to it, betrayal doesn't. It lingers, corrupts, seeps into your bones, and whispers lies about your worth. That's what I carried with me for months. Not just the knowledge that she chose someone else, but the haunting question of why. Why wasn't I enough? Why wasn't the life we built worth holding on to? Why did she stop choosing me? But I see now it was never about me. It was about her. Her restlessness. Her hunger for something easier, shinier, more convenient. And what I mistook for love, for partnership, was really just proximity and habit dressed in romance. That realization, as bitter as it was, also set me free. Because I stopped internalizing her failure as my own. I stopped dragging her ghosts into my new life, into every interaction, every conversation with Claire, every hopeful glance toward the future. Claire never asked me to forget what happened. She never once demanded I become someone else for her comfort. Instead, she made space for the version of me that emerged from the wreckage, scarred but sincere, cautious but still capable of affection. I remember one night, not long ago, when I woke up from a dream, one of those vivid, cruel ones where you relive the worst moments like they're happening all over again. I was drenched in sweat, heart pounding, throat tight with unspoken fear. Claire stirred beside me, asked what was wrong. I told her. All of it. In the darkness, my voice cracked with a vulnerability I hadn't let anyone see in years. She didn't interrupt. She didn't offer hollow reassurances. She just reached for my hand and held it firm and steady. You're here now, she whispered. And so am I. That simple acknowledgement hit harder than any therapy session ever could. I learned something valuable in all of this. Healing isn't about pretending it never happened. It's about integrating the pain into your story without letting it become your entire identity. It's about walking through the fire and still choosing to reach for the light. I'll never be the man I was before the accident, before the betrayal, and that's okay. That man was naive, trusting to a fault, blind in his love. The man I am now loves with eyes wide open. He knows how easily things can fall apart. He knows that trust is fragile. But he also knows his own strength. And I've stopped looking for closure in Alyssa's silence. I don't need an apology from her. I don't need explanations or regret. The closure came when I stopped waiting for her to fix what she broke. When I started building something new, not from denial, but from deliberate reconstruction. I live differently now. Simpler, slower. I take long walks without my phone. I write. I cook meals instead of ordering takeout. I check in with my brother more. I surround myself with people who show up, who speak plainly, who live honestly. And every time I see Claire's smile across the dinner table or hear her laugh at one of my terrible jokes, I'm reminded that not everything is lost forever. Some things are waiting to be found, not in the ashes of what burned down, but in the quiet spaces we rebuild with care. It's strange how life reassembles itself, often in ways you never expect. Looking back now, I can barely recognize the man I was lying in that hospital bed, fractured, frightened, and clinging to an illusion of love that had already disintegrated. I was so desperate to believe in us, in her, in the story we'd built, that I ignored every crack in the foundation. I mistook her presence at my bedside as proof of loyalty when in truth it was probably guilt that tethered her there, or convenience. It doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that I survived not just the accident but the collapse that followed. The irony is that the crash didn't destroy me. It revealed what was already broken. There's something sobering about facing your own mortality and then realizing that the people closest to you aren't who they pretended to be. I had to relearn everything. How to walk, how to trust, how to sleep without nightmares, how to look in the mirror and not see a man who'd been left behind. I carried the betrayal like a weight strapped to my chest, and for a long time I thought that was my new normal, a life lived under the pressure of loss. But pain, if you let it, can be a teacher. It doesn't always speak kindly, and it rarely offers comfort. But it's honest. It strips away illusions, ego, fantasy.